Hello again, this is Zachary Lewis with the Game Studio. This is Making Games with FlashPunk. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about using the Ogmo Editor. Now, you remember last time, we wrote our simple tile grid game, and when you run it, you can see that you are this red square. And right now, there's not a lot going on. We had to hand code this stage in, and that can get tedious after a while of, having to add each little individual section. So we're going to harness the power of the Ogmo Editor to allow us to basically make creating content very quick and easy. It's great to use editors like this because even in really early stages of the game, you can create something somewhat playable. And I found that just giving this tool to my friends, they will like to create all these different stages, and it'll kind of open up what you think about when you're making this game. Like, oh, I didn't realize that I could do something like that with this level. So the first thing we'll need to do is get the Ogmo Editor, and it's available from ogmoeditor.com. It's by Matt Thorsten. And you just click download and follow the instructions there. You'll need Adobe Air to run it. Now once you've downloaded Ogmo Editor, you'll get something like this. So it's just asking you, what project do you want to open? Well, we have to define a project first. So the first thing we'll do is we'll make a brand new file, make a blank document. I guess we already had one open, so we won't bother with that. But the first thing we'll do is save it as an OEP file. That stands for Ogmo Editor Project. So I like saving it in the main folder of my game. So we'll set this to a tilegrid.oep. Go ahead and save that. That's the file format that Ogmo looks for. Don't be scared, because it just turns out it's an XML file. So let's get to writing it. The first thing you need to do is define your project. And you can do that by just project and then just close it. Now Ogmo now sees this as a project file. And then we'll go ahead and give it a name. So we'll name it FlashPunk Tile Map Tutorial. So let's go ahead and save it. And so this should be enough to have it viewable in Ogmo. Now it's not going to run right now. So we need to start adding a couple different things. First we'll add some settings. So you can do that by starting your settings tag. I'm going to go ahead and set my syntax to XML so it kind of knows what I'm working with here. Now, the most basic settings we're going to use are default width, and that'll be 640 because remember that was the size of our movie last time, and default height, that'll be 480. Go ahead and save it. I normally save after typing almost everything, so that way it'll never get completely broken or whatever. Alright, so the way that Ogmo works is you define different layers, and each layer has different graphics or whatever in it. Now Ogmo does support drawing grids, and grids are basically what grids in FlashPunk are. They're simple binary data. It's either collidable or not. However, I don't like using grids because it just adds another layer of having to draw things. I like parsing my collision data straight from my tiles. So we're going to skip the grids and go straight to setting up some tiles. So we'll go ahead and create our layers, or rather our tile sets. And the first tile set we'll add, well, the only really, its name, we'll just call it tiles. And the image, now since we are one deep in our hierarchy here, it'll be src, and we'll go ahead and open that up to see what all's in it. /tileset.png. Now what it wants is your tile height and width. That's how it determines you know what size to draw everything. And we're using 32 by 32 tiles. We can just close that tag. That's the only tile set that we have right now. So now we need to create a layer. And this will basically let us draw our tile onto that layer. So we'll start a new layers tag. And it's a tiles layer. We'll name it our tiles. And we can set the grid size, which basically tells Ogmo where can we draw this. And we normally want this to be the same as our tile width and height, so we don't, you know, overwrite or overlap tiles. So we'll go ahead and set that to 32. And close that tag. Alright, so now we should be able to open this up in Ogmo. So we'll go ahead and open Ogmo. We want to open a project. Documents, Flash Develop. Gotta click on it 50 times because that's the best way to open it. And then tilegrid.oep. Go ahead and give that an open. Now you can see what it's already done for us. It's already given us our two kinds of tiles. And now it's super simple. I'll go ahead and maximize this so we can see more of it. So you can just draw on there. So, you know, to recreate our old thing, right, which took a little bit of doing because we had to write a bunch of code for it, all we have to do is drop that down there, drop that down, and we're basically good to go. So now we can save this out, and we'll put this back in the source folder, and we'll call it test level .oel, Ogmo Editor level. We'll go ahead and save that. Now you can see that that's appeared in our directory here, and if we look at that, all that is basically a big list of all the tiles we've drawn. So it's pretty handy. So now we need to add some objects. Kind of tell it like things like where the enemies will spawn, where coins are, where a treasure chest might be, where power-ups are, or where our player's going to start. So that's actually what we're going to do now. So we're going to create an object to define our player start. So still in our tilegrid.oep Ogmo Editor project, we're going to go ahead and create an objects layer. The first object we'll create, object, name, we'll name it player start. And again, it asks for an image so it knows what to draw on the editor. This won't show up in our game, it's just for our reference, or for your friend's reference if you give this editor project to them. And I've created a little graphic called player start.png. And again, it wants a height. That's 32 as well. And a width, 32. And there's also an optional tag called limit. And we want it to be limit 1 because we only want to have one player start per level. Now you would want to not have a limit. If you leave that off, then it'll allow you to place any number of them, which is good for enemies, coins, other things. But for things like player starts, we probably only want one. You can also limit other things, like if your game's set up where it can handle 5 different pickups, like you have to get 5 keys before you can leave the stage, then you can set up a limit of 5, and that'll prevent people who are creating content for you from making a map file that would not be compatible with your game code. So now we should have our objects in there. Now we have to add this back to our layers. So let's go ahead and move our layers down so it's more logical. We define our tile sets, we define our objects. Now let's go ahead and define our layers. Alright. And this will be an objects layer. A name. And we'll call this objects. object. And again, we want to set our grid size to 32. Now, if you've got certain objects that don't necessarily need to snap to a grid or can snap to a smaller grid, then you can change this number here. So that will allow you more granularity when placing an item. You know, your coin doesn't have to be in the middle of each block. You can put 10 coins next to each other really close for like a big chain of coins or something like that. So again, this isn't anything special. It's the same way that we brought in the tile. Go ahead and make sure that you save it. One cool thing about Ogmo is that we can go up here and say File, Reload Project. So now our project is reloaded. Now we've lost the changes we just made, but that's okay. So now you can see, create a little level, drag that out. We have our player start, so we can place him here. Well, what if we want him to over here? It's not a problem. You can see how it moves it. There's a couple cool other things about Ogmo. You saw some of the tools up here. This is actually a tile rectangle that allows you to define corners. So this is the top, bottom, left, right, and then each corner. So you can use this for making things that need circular or rounded edges, or perhaps if you're making a big chunk of a level, but each edge needs to be the edge of a wall. If you have special sprites or special graphics for wall corners, wall edges, etc. So we can just drag this in, and we'll go ahead and create a little map right here. So our player starts there. We'll give him this little room that he can spawn in. Kind of, you can give it your own flair. It's your game. You can do whatever you want with it, right? So we'll make a little room. It's kind of an adventure game-esque. As you can see, it's really intuitive, really simple to get going with this, which is really handy because the last thing you want to do, is make this awesome game engine and then not be able to actually play it because you only have like one level that's been hard-coded in. That's never fun for anybody. So I'll make something that looks a little bit interesting, trying to make it not look too mazy. Of course, this isn't a tutorial on level design. This is basically using these tools. This area will open up a little bit. So here's our sample level. Maybe our player can start in this courtyard, so he can explore this area over here. Again, we want to save the level. We're just going to overwrite our old level because that was fine. Testlevel.oel. We'll give it a save, and there you go. So Ogmo Editor is extremely quick and easy at creating levels like this. This was just the very first part of really getting into the complexities of Ogmo. It allows you to place paths, to place nodes, to place tiles that can be stretched and skewed and resized. This little pane down here allows you to change, how big your map is if we set, that property in our Ogmo Editor project file. But for now, this is going to be good enough to be able to create interesting levels and test our different collision. So next episode, I'm going to walk you through creating an XML loader to allow you to dynamically load this map in to our game as opposed to having our hard-coded map. And I'll show you how to embed the levels into your game. I'll show you how to load them in, and I will show you how to get all that stuff set up. So again, thank you very much. I'm Zachary Lewis with the Game Studio. If you like what you see here, each week we record a podcast, the Game Studio Podcast, where we talk about all manner of game development topics and trends and whatnot. And you can find that at podcast.thegamestudio.net. Or if you just want to see the kind of work that I do with my group, you can check us out online at www.thegamestudio.net. Thank you very much.